Digital transformation has disrupted industries across the board, but no sector has been buffeted quite like the retail sector. We've seen brick and mortar stores close, incredible consolidation, a massive shift to online shopping, and wholesale changes in the way we think we should be treated as customers. Many traditional retailers have felt the pain of this shift and been slow to embrace digital transformation. We're here today to talk about one retailer that's embraced transformation and put technology, innovation, and customer experience front and center in its effort to compete in this brave new world. Hi everybody, and welcome to this video webcast brought to you by Apogee and IDG. I'm Jim Malone, Senior Content Strategist with IDG's Strategic Marketing Services, and I'll be your moderator. Now, the business we're here to discuss is Magazine Luiza, one of Brazil's biggest retailers, with almost 900 stores, 24,000 employees, and a digital presence that's rare among 60-year-old family-started organizations. Now, I'm delighted to have a pair of experts with us today to explore the innovation, technology, and culture behind Magazine Luiza's success. First, let's meet John Rethens. John leads business transformation strategy at Apogee, the enterprise API management solution of Google Cloud Platform. John helps customers transform their businesses using an API-first approach. He also leads Apogee Compass, the industry's first self-service assessment and recommendation tool for digital transformation. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us. We're really glad to have you.
Hi, Jim. Thank you.
Also, let's meet Andre Fatala, CTO of Magazine Luiza. Magazine Luiza, as mentioned, operates almost 900 stores, including 141 virtual stores, and an e-commerce operation. It was voted a 2018 Most Innovative Company in Latin America by Fast Company. Fatala was previously director of Luiza Labs, the company's innovation center, responsible for digital transformation initiatives in all technology-related operations. Welcome, Fatala. Thanks so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. We're really glad you could be here with us. So let's get right into it. Let's start with you, Fatala. Tell us about Magazine Luiza's business. Why are you so focused on digital transformation, and how are you putting the customer first?
We saw a lot of companies in Brazil creating the e-commerce operations separate of the physical, and Frederico Trajano, our CEO, had the long-term vision of to be a truly omni-channel. We need to do everything together since the beginning, right? And leverage things like, okay, I'm already delivering products in the customer's house. Why not use the same supply network to deliver e-commerce orders as well? And after building all of this infrastructure until 2015, from the 15 years, we decided to change the model and provide all of this infrastructure to the merchants, small merchants in Brazil as well. And then he came with the strategy that really focus on the digital. And the idea is to not be more a traditional retailer with a physical department, but be a digital platform with a physical presence.
It's really inspiring to see how you guys did that. That just to flip the model on its head. John, I want to bring you in to talk kind of the global context for this. I mean, it really is a remarkable story.
Right, and what's really exciting about Magazine Luiza is that they've managed to accomplish the thing that most retailers in the world are trying to do right now. So everyone knows that online is disrupting physical, and Magazine Luiza had to make some very tough decisions. And one of those decisions was, at one point, do we keep our physical stores, right? This is something that all retailers deal with. At the end of the day, they said, yes, we're going to keep our physical stores. And furthermore, we're going to double down on investing in the people that we have. And what we're going to do is empower them and get more leverage out of these assets rather than try and break some of those assets off and only focus on digital. And I think there's some key parts of this story that are really critical for other retailers to know about. And that is this concept that there aren't silos where you have your e-commerce on one side and your web presence over here and your mobile presence over there, and these are all different teams. At the heart of the Magazine Luiza story is the fact that they're all one company. It's one Magazine Luiza, and what they're doing is they're using technology to leverage the vision that they're trying to drive. And fundamentally, what we find with customers around the world is those that are focused on driving great customer experiences, whether those be physical or digital customer experiences, and leveraging all this great technology that Fatala has mentioned earlier, those are the ones that succeed in this digital transformation. The transformation isn't just about buying technology and using it to do something. It's about driving excellent customer experiences and getting more business leverage out of it. And Magazine Luiza has done this very well.
What I want to explore while we're on this topic is that intersection between the customer and the technology. But talk about how technology helps you serve that, put the customer first.
You can't be a digital company and not master the technology, right? And when we start the R&D team, we started to explain and show to the company how important is the technology when you talk that we need to execute a vision. Actually, the end of the day, everything is about execution, right? Like everybody's thinking and talking about the same thing. But what is going to differentiate the players is how fast you can implement some ideas or hypotheses, see the results, and then scale. And in Magazine Luiza, we start with just probably 10 developers in-house, and now we have more than 350 developers. And we changed the model of IT, and the majority of the development we are doing inside the Magazine Luiza with these 300 and something developers. And another thing is that John mentioned is we try to break the silos. So that's pretty much the model that we implemented in Magazine Luiza. And in Luiza Labs, we don't have just technology. We have a product management, technology, and the agility team. So through agility, we can understand that we are trying to get the best performance inside the team to deliver things fast, to execute fast. And these guys are help us a lot to understand what is the pain points of the development flow, and we try to raise the bar for all the 48 teams that we have in developing applications in Magazine Luiza.
Joe, let's continue that deep dive into the technology. You've helped lots of companies with their digital transformation. What are you seeing here as far as familiar patterns and what stands out to you?
Right. I think Magazine Luiza has been able to do a couple of things that are critical for successful companies to do, but that is very hard for people to get on the right track. So the first, as Fatala described, is this was really about business and changing their business model. So he described that switch in mindset from being a physical retailer with an e-commerce sidecar to a digital platform with physical presence and a focus on customer service. And so that's fundamentally a business decision. And so there was a major strategic decision made at the executive and board level for Magazine Luiza to continue to invest in their internal development capabilities, as he described. So one of the key challenges in digital transformation is that organizations are focused primarily on using technology to get more efficient at their existing business model. But what companies who really do transformational well do is they disrupt their business model. They make fundamental changes to it. That means that they are truly transformed. That is to say, they're not the same as they were before. In the case of Magazine Luiza, one of the really interesting things they did was, unlike most retailers who use technology to just bring more people into the store or into the mobile app, they did that work, but they also completely opened up their e-commerce platform so that other merchants could now sell products on their platform that weren't available before. The upshot of that is they have now millions of SKUs rather than tens of thousands of SKUs, and they have thousands of partners. And all of that drives this massive growth in their business. So Fatala, I think it'd be a little interesting to talk about what were some of the challenges that you faced in making that change as an organization?
When we talk about digital transformation, we are seeing that exists some phases. Like the phase one is you have something inside your company, the process, and you use just the technology to try to improve something of that process, but you keep the same process. And what we're trying to do on our maturity about digital transformation Magazine Luiza is to look to that process and says, oh, I don't know if it's really good to our customer. We need to change this. And then we can use the technology to provide a better experience, trying to thinking about a new process that we can build. I'm seeing that at the marketplace for us, give us a more sense of what is a platform and how we can change the mindset inside the company. The traditional retailers keeps looking to the revenue KPIs, what's the revenue by the end of the year. And when you use a platform, you need to just change the entire mindset to look, okay, what's the KPIs that are going to drive benefits to our customers? And how I can provide this to the people that are working using our platform.
Yeah, and I think, as you listen to the description of how Magazine Luiza has evolved, one of the key things to focus in on is they learned all of this by doing, right? And I think one of the challenges in today's retail environment, and frankly in every organization that we have experience with, is there's a mindset of planning first before action, and the desire to have the perfect plan or the perfect transformation project that you can then go execute in 18 months. And what Fatala is describing is the actual reality, which is that they used data and insights gained from data and a spirit of testing and learning to drive every stage of their digital transformation.
Now, Fatala, it may seem like a basic question, but why cloud? Why did that play such a big role in your transformation?
Is there another way to do it? So for us, it's something more to help empower the developers again, because for us, cloud is about scale and something that help us to try new things really fast, because we can start doing okay, I'm seeing that in this platform, they have the service IBC, and I can connect the service IBC to first try something, and then we can think a little bit more about if we need to change something for scale. And that's how we use cloud. And our strategy is to keep things like this. And then now we are thinking about how we can get the legacy systems and send to the cloud as well.
So Fatala, let's dig into the actual technology that let you guys do this. Talk about the software and what you use to make this happen.
Everything that they are trying to use, then we look if it's possible to empower our developer, right? As I mentioned, when you try to understand what is the challenge that we have to deliver this strategy, we need to have the teams thinking about solutions and then execute really fast. And because of that, we start changing and break our legacy systems and microservice. And we use APIs to connect all of those applications. We looked to our legacy systems and try to understand, okay, what I need to decouple for these big systems that are probably is a pushback for us to the strategy to use in the new applications that we are building. And nowadays, after working this for a while, we decide to use containers using the Kubernetes to make more easy to developers to ship the code to production, to create some environments and things like that. And we develop our own platform as a service on top of Kubernetes using Go. And we have more than 200 applications that are orchestrated by this platform as a service. And because of that, now we have a kind of freedom to test different cloud providers, because I have everything in the container, right? And that's really good because we can understand what this provider can do best. And we are more like a multi-cloud now. Mobile is really important for us, and we try to have teams dedicated from the construct the UI, the user experience that the user interface and the user experience that we want to provide to our customers. And all of those backends are APIs that we are building to provide this experience. So why is this important? Because it's not the matter just to expose an endpoint of API. You need to be able to change and create a lot of mashups with different APIs to provide this kind of experience. And because of that, we have some teams really dedicated to create these APIs. But the strategy is to try to teach how to construct these APIs to all the teams that we have building applications in Magazine Luiza.
Yeah, John, this agility, nimbleness that is kind of seeping through as Fatala talks, that's really a product of the technology they're using.
That's right, yeah. So, what Fatala described is actually the execution of what a lot of folks are working towards. And they've gotten there. They're leveraging cloud, they're leveraging multiple clouds. They have a very sophisticated API strategy that basically enables them to create the decoupling that he described, and then have what we would call a facade layer. But there's a few things that they've done differently in terms of executing that strategy that would be excellent for others to note. So one of those things is the focus, as Fatala said at the beginning, on developers. Oftentimes when folks are doing these kinds of transformations with technology, what they're really focused on is getting all their back-end systems in kind of a perfect architecture. And unfortunately, that perfect architecture is never really going to exist. It's always going to be evolving over time. But what they really focused on was speed and agility for the developers who are creating value, which leads to the second thing that Magazine Luiza did differently than many folks, which is they primarily focused on the revenue-generating business model aspects of technology first. So rebuilding their mobile platform, rebuilding their e-commerce platform, creating that third-party marketplace. And as he described, a lot of their back-end systems are still legacy. They're not completely modernized. They're in the process of doing that, but that's not what they did first. And so they're using a lot of the same technologies that many people are trying, cloud, APIs, microservices, and they're very, very good at using those technologies and have seen benefit from the technology itself. But the manner in which they implemented it, focused on developers and making it easy for developers and making sure that the first things they did were very close to business impact, are really what set Magazine Luiza apart and are lessons that would behoove others in the retail space and frankly in all markets to learn.
What would you tell folks is that key to keeping that legacy still useful during this transformation? What's key there to think about?
So from our perspective and what we've seen is that folks that implement this kind of API facade pattern are able to leverage the API platform and things that are built in Apogee like caching and rate limiting to basically protect systems that were never designed to operate at web scale. And you use the platform to mediate the web traffic such that you can now protect those systems. They still have value. They're still doing the valuable things that you need them to do, but you're using the API layer to basically get more leverage out of those older systems.
Yeah, I would add to this is don't try to change all the entire bag of systems. Almost like okay, I want to refactor everything in a project of 2 or 3 years, or it's more like okay, what's the part that could hold us to provide the experience that we want? Then get this part, build them, and then you can reduce the dependence of the legacy systems over time.
So it sounds, Fatala, like complexity, you can't avoid it here. How did you manage these APIs? When did you know you needed to manage these, and how did you do it?
We use API gateways more for governance of the APIs. So we worry about the security mainly because all of this digital strategy, we are moving everything to digital, right? And then we are seeing a lot of, I can say, incidents in the world about security. And with API gateway, we can make sure that everything that we are building and exposed is secured. And we use the API manager to control some access that we have in huge peak traffics in the application, so we can identify a key that are doing a lot of requests to our platform and could break something, and then we can set up a throttling on top of that, and that's it. Or we can see some backends or legacy systems that are suffering to respond for requests, and then we can implement really fast a cache and raise the number of the of minutes of this cache. And another thing is we can monitoring and we can visualize everything and how the APIs are doing, right? So it's a huge control dashboard that you can see everything and change if it's necessary.
Right, and this is a great case of leveraging the kind of Apigee platform for control, for visibility, for security, and to make it easy for developers to access these systems.
Clearly, Fatala, APIs are key to your strategy. So why is it not just about exposing an endpoint or exposing the API?
So we have this in the architecture principles saying that APIs first, and a API for us is a product, how we understand and architecture the entire product. And then we are going to create front ends just to interact with the APIs. And when we change something, some rule in the API, all of the front ends that we develop are going to have this change, right? So, and we see some companies that actually use just to expose some API. And when someone needs to use a parameter that is different on the contract of the API, they create a second version of that API. And it's keep doing this kind of thing. And then we are going to see something like, okay, you have I don't know, dozen of different applications with dozen of different APIs that are delivering the same business rule. We keep thinking really hard about how we can create something that other teams are going to reuse that information. And because of that, we have in the Apigee the developer portal. We put a lot of documentation there. There is a playground, so the developers can try some APIs and ask it to the teams that are responsible about that API to do some changes, like can you insert this different information for me? And then since the guys provide this change, every application that are consuming that API can use this new information as well. So for us, it's more like, okay, our product is an API, and then we have some interface to interact with those APIs.
So reuse, don't recreate. That sounds like a pretty good takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, again, this is driven by a mindset shift. So, many of the folks listening out there, they've been building APIs. APIs have been around for 20, 30 years, right? They're application programming interfaces. There's nothing new to see here. But in a way, there's a very new thing to see, and that is thinking about these developers as customers and thinking about that API as the product of your organization, as Fatala described, and really thinking through as a product what's needed here and building that API not based on what IT thinks it should be, but based on what developers are telling them they should be via developer portal and developer relations activities, understanding what the market is asking for you to provide, whether that market be an external market or your internal market of developers. It doesn't really matter. What you need to think about is what is that interface, how is it expressing value, and then how do you tweak that just like you would a software product? And how do you ship the features and functions that are needed for your developer community to create value for your enterprise and, more importantly, for your customers?
Now, Joe, you touched on it earlier, but talk a little bit about how Apigee Compass fits into this ecosystem in this process.
Right. So, as we've been describing, this digital transformation, this API-first digital transformation is all-encompassing. It's not just about what your dev team is doing or what your shared services team is doing. It's about how your whole business is operating and the very goals of that business. And so what we did was we created a tool called Apogee Compass that's based on the best practices we've learned from great customers like Magazine Luiza and others. And we put this together in a framework so that folks could self-service their own API strategy. So what is this framework? The framework has 3 categories and it has 10 dimensions. The 3 categories have to do with vision, alignment, and execution. And the reason why those categories exist is because if there's no vision in the organization to become a platform, to build ecosystems, to have an outside-in focus, or thinking about APIs as products, if that vision doesn't exist yet or it's weak, it's very hard to get the kind of buy-in that's needed at the executive level to drive this kind of change. But if that vision exists, then you have to make sure that there's alignment. As Fatala described, there's been a lot of changes at Magazine Luiza around how they fund projects. The leadership he and Fred Trajano, the CEO of Magazine Luiza, have had to show in making this change. And then, of course, setting the metrics to make sure that the organization is focused on the right metrics to drive the change. And then you can really start thinking about execution. Most folks want to go straight from vision to execution and skip that alignment piece, and that's where they have the challenge. But then once you're executing, you need to really start thinking about every step of your software development lifecycle, your SDLC, and try and remove friction and rearrange it so that it supports this kind of test and learn environment, this test and learn mentality that you need to be great at digital. Through this model, what we've been able to do is provide customers with an ability to benchmark themselves against leaders like Magazine Luiza in the marketplace. And then also what the tool does is provide you with recommendations that are contextual to where your organization is and based on real-world practices that we know work. This tool is free and readily available to everyone, and you can find it at transform.apogee.com.
Without this, we are going to try to build things that are going to nothing about the results, how you can impact the results of the company following the strategy, right? And another important thing is you can understand better if the entire culture is ready to go to this kind of different approach and using technology and the methodologies to build new things. I believe that's the most important point of the compass. Since you understand that, okay, I have a good environment and I'm totally aligned to the strategy, it's up to you to execute. Like everything is good and you can start work and try things and see what happens, but you are more secure about that everything that am I doing, it's totally aligned to the what's the results or what's the strategies the company are saying and showing to the organization.
Every company is dealing with digital transformation in one way or another. Fatala, what advice would you give them when they're thinking about their digital transformation program? The top most important things you think they should keep in mind?
The entire C-level needs to be aligned about this.
That's easy.
Yeah, and that's not easy at all because we keep saying this in the company. When you go to this kind of disruption on your organization, people get a little bit uncomfortable about their position, their chair that they are holding. And when you say something like, we need to work more in the collaborative way, so the intern can discuss about the strategy. Like he can bring their ideas, and you need to be open to listen to this and says, yeah, sure, let's try it. And sometimes in the traditional companies, our position is more important than ideas, right? And you need to be open to try new things. And you need to open to fail and learn about that fail and then try again. I know that is like a really overwhelming this statement about fail fast and all kind of these things, because in the end of the day, you as a company has results to delivery, but our strategy is really about how we can learn faster than our competitors. If we do that, they gonna need to catching up what Magazine Luiza are doing, right? Because we are not looking just for what our competitors are doing, but what people in Brazil want. And if you bring these benefits to them, they are going to become a client of Magazine Luiza. And we need more clients in Brazil. To be able to get more clients, we need to try new things and understand what's the pain points of our customers, the consumers, when they decide to buy something in Brazil.
And from a technology point of view, what piece of advice would you give other companies?
First, don't try to control everything. Like, as I said before, understand the culture of the company and create your own framework that you understand that are going to scale and keep the pace of innovation. And it takes time. Like, we are in probably it's 7 years doing this, like to understand how to change everything, and we start to get these results just 3 years ago, like 4 years to set up everything and 3 years collecting the results of this setup. Try to create this framework, try to empower the developers, hire really good guys that want to understand the business, not only about engineering. Like, okay, I can use engineering to deliver something. I keep saying this in Magazine Luiza. We use technology to deliver something, or why you're here.
And John, from your point of view, what are some of the big takeaways from the Magazine Luiza story and the Apogee story as they come together?
So, kind of the fundamental things that we've seen to be true, not just in the case of Magazine Luiza, but everywhere, are if you're focused on the customer and delivering great results and great experiences to those customers, if you're focused on your developers and enabling those developers to test and learn, and you're thinking about your APIs as products that you're bringing to market quickly, that you're iterating over time, those are the hallmarks of really what it takes to be competitive in a digital transformation. In addition to that, the biggest thing is this is a whole company thing. This is not just your IT organization. This is your whole organization, how it views itself and how it presents itself to the world. So the sooner that you can use tools like Compass and others to build this alignment across your organization to really get people set in the right direction, the better.
Well, we're about at the end of our time for this session today. I want to give a big thanks to our speakers today, Apogee's John Rethens and Magazine Luiza's Andre Fatala, for sharing their insights and expertise. And thanks especially to you, our viewers, for tuning in. Now, please remember to check out the resource list on your player for some links to some valuable Apogee resources. And for Apogee and IDG, this is Jim Malone saying thanks for tuning in.